Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into directing focus, the power of strategic questions. If you've ever stared at a massive, messy project and just felt completely paralyzed by all the moving parts, well, you are in the exact right place. We're going to break down exactly how to shift our entire approach to problem solving using one very specific, highly strategic tool. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. Why do problems feel so complicated? Think about the last time a project went completely sideways at work, or maybe a daily task just spiraled totally out of control. Picture it. It's the end of the quarter, a key deliverable is delayed, your email threads are blowing up with 50 different opinions, stakeholders are demanding answers. It feels like a scattered, complicated mess, right? You're dealing with a dozen different moving parts, everyone's stressed, and that heavy, sinking feeling of overwhelm just washes right over you. It's an incredibly common, deeply frustrating experience. And man, it completely derails our productivity and just drains our mental energy. But our source text points out a fascinating root cause for that exact overwhelm. Problems often feel complicated simply because our focus is scattered everywhere, and usually in completely irrelevant directions. It's a classic case of cognitive overload. It's not that the math is too hard or that the task is actually impossible. It's that our attention is just fractured across way too many variables. And when our attention is fractured, our working memory is completely maxed out. That breeds unnecessary complication, which then immediately triggers our emotional reactions. We get stressed, we get super frustrated, we start putting out all these little fires, and we totally lose our grip on the actual core issue that needs solving. So this is where we really need to introduce a fundamental shift in how we operate. We need to start looking at strategic questions as a tool to direct human focus, not just a way to seek out technical answers. I really want to emphasize that distinction because it's absolutely crucial for mastering this concept. We usually think of questions as a way to just extract data, right? Like, what time is the meeting or how much does this cost? Those are technical queries. But a strategic question, that acts as a grounding mechanism. It's a deliberate, powerful tool designed to literally lock your concentration exactly where it needs to be when everything else around you is spinning out of control. It actively manages your limited cognitive bandwidth. Let's contrast two totally different mindsets to see how this actually plays out in real time. Think about the classic, almost automatic reaction to a crisis, asking, why is this a mess? We have all asked that. But think about what happens in your brain when you ask it. It invites blame, it invites venting, and it anchors us right in the emotion of the past. Your brain literally searches for excuses and grievances to answer that question. Now contrast that directly against asking, which part will have the greatest impact if it isn't resolved? Boom. Instantly you can feel the shift. We move entirely away from an emotional reaction and step right into strategic, logical prioritization. We aren't just blindly looking for an answer anymore. We're actively redirecting our brain's focus away from the chaos and toward a structured, future-oriented solution. And that shift perfectly illustrates a core tenet from our source material. Powerful questions lock attention on the essential. I absolutely love this quote because it hits the nail right on the head. It captures the true utility of what we're talking about today. Think of your normal, everyday attention like a giant floodlight. It illuminates the entire messy room, highlighting every single piece of junk and distraction. But the goal of asking a powerful question isn't to uncover some magical, hidden truth about the universe. It's to turn that floodlight into a laser beam. It strips away all the noise, cuts through those irrelevant directions and scattered distractions, and locks your attention solely on the single switch you need to flip. So, how do we actually do this? Well, it builds into a really practical, repeatable process for simplifying complexity. Think of it as a chronological transformation. Let's say a major product launch suddenly hits a massive technical bug. Step 1, we start in the chaos. Attention is totally scattered across the marketing fallout, the upset clients, the buggy code. Then, step 2, we intentionally interrupt that chaos by asking a meaningful strategic question. Something like, what is the single failure point keeping the core system offline? Moving to step 3, that question acts as our mental anchor, locking our concentration on the absolute essential piece of code, and we just ignore the marketing fallout for a moment. And finally, step 4, we successfully shift our entire mindset into logical prioritization. By actively following this sequence, we literally take a scattered, overwhelming mess, and we carve a clear, actionable path right through the middle of it. Ultimately, the crucial takeaway here is the tangible result of this directed focus. When you master this technique, you're actively choosing to shift away from emotional reactions. You're taking deliberate steps to simplify complexity, basically breaking mountains down into manageable molehills. And most importantly, you're identifying the specific aspects of a problem that will have the most significant impact. Think about how this could transform your daily work. Mastering this means you no longer get paralyzed by the sheer size or messiness of a problem. You save time, you preserve your professional relationships because you aren't pointing fingers, and you become the trusted person in the room who can calmly assess the noise, ask that grounding question, and immediately find the most critical lever to pull. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. When the next mess hits, where will you direct your focus? Are you going to let the chaos scatter your attention and drive a panicked, emotional reaction? Or will you use a strategic question to cut through the noise and lock on to what truly matters? Keep that front of mind the next time you start to feel overwhelmed. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to start testing this logical shift out in your very next complex situation, rather than simply seeking technical answers. Catch you next time!